Okay, great. We are in session now. This is the AIGA Research Ethics Committee session 1. This session is a paper discussion in which we are going to discuss about a very interesting paper called The Ethics of AI. The paper details have already been shared on indian.substack.com. We are happy to have members of the Research Ethics Committee of AIGA with us. Uh, Let us just introduce them. We have Dr. Chhavi Sharma, who is the chairperson of the committee. We have Malak, who's a law student at RGNUL. We have Assistant Professor Prabhat Singh, and we have a few more members who will be joining in the discussion shortly. So, Dr. Chhavi, over to you. But yeah, uh, uh, as it may seem, okay, great. So, yeah, great. I can see you now. So yeah, just if it's suitable to all, if you could just open your camera for 1 minute, we could just have the headshot done so that we can go ahead. Yeah. Great, excellent, excellent. Prabhat, could you be in a position to open? Yeah, great. Thank you, thank you. Excellent, excellent. Just a second. Yeah, and cheers. Yeah, great, excellent. Thank you for the headshot. We have the screenshot. You can keep your camera open or close, up to you. No issues with that. Great. So we're good to go. Dr. Chavi, please feel free to take ahead. And you can maybe explain a little bit about the paper. What was your interest to discuss this paper at the first place in this committee? Why do you wish to do it? The floor is yours. And I think then we can have usual discussions. I will be the last to participate in principle. But yeah, please feel free to go ahead. Yeah.
Hello, good evening, everyone. As Abhivardhan has already introduced, I'm Dr. Chhavi, and I have been recently involved in extensively reading, discussing, and publishing about AI governance, ethics, and how AI policy, what nations are doing what in their AI policies, and how India needs to come up with the AI policy or an act as soon as possible. So I have been working on these areas, and I just wanted to take this paper up because I feel there's a lot which is talked about AI governance in our nation, to be specific, and AI ethics, I feel, need to be the standard foundation where this policy or the act needs to come up with, because already the other acts in the other nations already talk a lot about fairness, human rights, social justice, and all. So AI ethics need to be incorporated in a way that they are not only talked about the lawmakers and the policymaker, but also the technical developers are equally involved. So this paper primarily talks about just about 22 guidelines are compared of various AI ethic descriptions. So the author has talked about AI ethics from different aspects and different, like they have picked up different AI acts. Or for example, if you could see the table 1 of this paper, this table basically talks about overview of AI ethics guidelines and the different issues that they cover. So in this, the AI ethic guidelines they have talked about are multiple guidelines. For example, different reports that have come up in AI. Since this is not a very recent paper, so these reports and research papers that they have analyzed are not very recent, but they have talked about OpenAI Charter and the ITI AI policy principles, Microsoft principles, and various AI principles which had come up maybe in 2018, 19, 16, and so on. So they have in this table categorized what are the key issues in all these AI acts or whatever guidelines were given up by various nations, what were the key issues of AI ethics that they have picked up. So I have picked up this table to be the key aspect of today's discussion, which very neatly describes various issues that need to be talked about in AI ethics. So I hope everybody is on board so far. I hope it is making sense to everyone what we are discussing. Okay, sure. So I would like to move ahead with this discussion because the introduction part of the paper is very basic and trivial for our understanding, because we often keep talking about what ethics are, how we need fairness. So these AI ethics key issues I'll pick up one by one, and I feel that these are the things that we can discuss for the evening. So, with the first key issue mentioned as privacy protection, I feel it's not something very new. How the AI-driven technologies are like a threat in the slightest and the most major way to the individuals and the organization privacy. So there's always a concern about there's a vast amount of data that they are relying on, and how, so there are always eyebrows raised and questions asked about how this data is collected, how it is stored, and how will it be utilized basically so that the individual's privacy rights are protected. So privacy protection is by far the most standard discussion on AI ethics. And I don't think so that it actually needs an introduction. So moving from privacy, there's fairness and non-discrimination or justice. So I would request all the members to please feel free to make it an interactive session and just not a monologue. So everybody can participate and add on to whatever you want to contribute to what we are discussing. So to the second key issue, which is fairness, non-discrimination. So I was just reading a book on AI policy the other day. Bias is so far the AI bias, that the word we come across, is so far the most threatening ethical issue that we are dealing with AI as a community, and to ensure justice, to ensure recognition and coverage of all the communities, AI bias is probably one of the most threatening issues. So to just quickly define what AI bias is, I feel everybody must be aware, but AI bias is basically when an AI algorithm primarily works on certain data set, which covers a particular ethnicity or a particular kind of people, maybe gender or certain specific nation or category of people. So in that perspective, there's this book which was citing an example, uh, a very obviously gender biased example of AI, how it works, that in a certain nation, AI was used to issue driving license to people, and it was so gender biased that out of 20 women who were applying, only one or two women could get through the license test, because there was a bias in the data set that most of the women drivers are bad. So these kind of bias obviously are unethical, and they're demeaning for any gender or any category of people that we are talking about. So this is the second point, which is given as a key issue, and the blocks that you can see which are highlighted in green in this table one are basically, was that issue covered in these particular guidelines or principle or not. Okay, so moving on from non-discrimination justice, we come to accountability. So the word accountability is very explicit here, that we need to basically establish clear lines of these accountability mechanisms when if you need to build the individual trust in AI system, because if AI system is coming up with a solution, so we need to determine, like, a point who is responsible when AI is making errors, or if AI tends to harm individuals in a certain ways, then who is the point of contact which will be responsible for such a event? Abhivardhan, do we just keep going in this way, like point by point, or we can have, maybe if everybody has gone through the paper, we can make it a discussion kind of a thing? Because I was thinking, when I proposed to do a paper discussion, I thought like it will be a free flow of ideas, maybe not only this paper and like the lines of this paper one by one line, maybe just like the general idea what we can talk about, right? So I would just like want you to ask the, yeah, please go
Malak,
ahead, Malak.
yeah.
Yeah, so talking about free flow of ideas, I just wanted to ask, like, would it be an ethical guideline to propose that only in cases where human decision error, the rate of error in human decision making is greater than AI. Only there we should be substitute. Only in those cases that the decision making should be substituted by AI. Otherwise, there is no point of automation in all those cases where human
Yeah.
decision making is better.
Right, I get what you are pointing to, Malak. For example, there a lot of health systems are being AI enabled now. A lot of like health detection systems, and a lot of surgeries are being made AI driven, robot driven. So I feel I also resonate with that idea that something which is done by far by humans, and which is I feel which is more accurate and better done by humans. So we should not replace, because that is the prime reason why we are talking about the word ethics, because human beings are seeing only AI as a threat. The entire AI talk revolves around seeing AI as a bad master, and everybody feels that it is going to take away jobs, it is going to mess around with everything, it is going to spoil the students with their education. There's no plus that we have for AI. So if we feel that if we reasonably can replace AI with where it needs to be, if something is done in a better way by humans, so why do we need to, like, why do we have this eureka ki okay ye bhi ab hum AI se karayenge? Why do we need that? So if something is better done by humans, we should let it be that way. I completely resonate with that point, because that is the way people can see AI as a science, as a technology, and not as something which is a phenomena which is going to cause a lot of havoc in their lives.
Yeah. So, like, I think in the AI Act, do you think that this is something that can be legislatively mandated, or it would be beyond the realm of, I don't know, sovereign functions to mandate what technological advancements can a private citizen do or not do? Going to
Right.
the legal angle of it.
I think, to be honest, I won't be a good person to answer this, because I have very little knowledge of legal things, legal aspects. But it would need a lot of groundwork, because if something as basic as for example, as basic as Mighty's, this comes up that you need permission. Any
Hmm.
generative AI act, you need permission to go ahead with. I don't know what was the idea, because it needs a lot of groundwork and very specific descriptions. Like, for example, if I'm not wrong, it is the EU Act which describes these four category of threats,
Higher risk.
which is so to the point that this is like a major threat. I don't know the exact keywords that they use for these threats. There are four words that they use,
I
but
think
it
they
is
use
so
the
very
higher risk and
specific.
low risk
High
systems.
risk and medium risk or something. So they've also categorized their industries that way. If we talk on those lines, like if India also someday plans to come up with something like this, if we could categorize that these kind of generative AI startups, which are probably which can be used for educational purposes, they need to follow this, which are like maybe art and creativity based, they need to follow this, because then there are a lot of other things also. You need to consider IP rights and every other law which can be talked about.
I think that is where Abhivardhan sir always say that there should be some standardization in AI. I think that comes into picture. Like we should have industry specific guidelines. I
Yeah.
think that is something that you arrived at. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and to add, I think I mean I will but before I add, I think I will let Prabhat and you know
Uh,
Anshul also engage. So hi Anshul, good evening. And
am I audible to everyone?
Hi.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, both of you are audible.
Actually, regarding data protection and biasness and accountability, I see the data protection and biasness in one frame, because the AI is taking idea from the public data, and if there are biasness present in the public data, from their AI took the biasness. I think so. We have to be aware that from which data we are giving to the AI. I think we should consider that point also.
Right. Anshul, what do you think? And yeah, good evening. Nice to connect as well, obviously. Yeah.
I'm obviously a little too newbie to make any comments about it, but I was reading this paper about AI ethics and like how, in order to make a responsible AI, we are sort of taking out the human out of it, and that bias is perhaps the only human thing that is human to AI, and that can probably. So it's more about the sample size of data reflecting as better it is, and AI not probably being ready to make decisions as of yet, only analytics.
Yeah. That's actually valid because across sectors, this is the thing, right? Uh, you go in health, you want to use the diagnostic tool, you might not know if, have to know at least if it's working for a particular segment, right? I had met somebody which had a startup incubated from an IIT, and they actually had this thing that they were using Gen AI to help people cure their mental health issues, such as depression and other forms of mental fatigue or something like that. And I was like, okay, what's the efficiency? How much it works? And for what audience are you targeting? He said it's B2C, which is business to consumer, but efficiency is 80%. So I'm like, that's a bit of an honest number. And yeah, so uh, I think it's a frenzy, obviously, sometimes, and
But I feel for something as typical and critical as mental health, this could be like 80% precision could be risky, obviously, because a
yeah,
person who might be in a panic attack and is given some weird advice would be really risky in that way.
exactly. And that's the whole point. Um,
Yeah.
it gets risky. I completely agree. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I think this is a good way to discuss, and I think we can, what we can do in the discussion is take anything from the paper. Take anything from the paper, any section that
Yeah.
you find interesting, refer the page, and discuss something about it. Not exactly in a sense, what? Okay, this paper says XYZ, but like this
Hmm.
reminds me of. We can do it in this way. It's a very fun approach. There's no problem. You have, I don't know, 40 minutes left, so please feel free to.
So, Abhivardhan, I would like to bring up this particular aspect in obviously in this table only. There's this science policy link what they are talking about. This is also mentioned as one of the key issues maybe AI ethic issues which they have brought up. Maybe for what I could like understand, it could be basically talking about to bridge basically the gap that we always see between the standard AI research and obviously policy making. So uh, I feel, I don't know how this is more than often talked about that there needs to be a cohesion, there needs to be a collaboration between researchers, policymakers, and other stakeholders. But I really doubt that this actually happens because there are AI labs, then there are policymakers, and there are lawyers. I feel these are completely disjoint of each other. Because one day I was just giving a talk on some AI, like the gaps. So I realized the curriculum, the AI curriculum, what we teach as professors in MSc, data science, or core AI, we never talk about the word ethic. We never teach them like what are the ethics of AI. So if a computer science engineer is, obviously they are not like dumbheads that they would not know what harm AI can do, but if they will never see AI from an ethical perspective and only lawyers will see it from a perspective, so how can there be an amalgamation of the society, and how can everyone know what? Firstly, I feel at ground level, how will everyone know what AI is? Everybody feels that it is like it's just a buzzword, and I feel there needs to be a groundwork, like something where everybody knows good, bad, and there is some kind of advisory, like a public advisory. Please, others, please go on.
Yeah. Malak, Prabhat, uh,
Yeah,
Anshul,
yes,
please.
actually, I have a thought from some time that when we talk about jurisprudence in law, so uh, like in physical mode, state controls everything. State
Right.
controls everything and state owns everything. But in virtual mode, like a private company owns the space, virtual space, and private company decides uh, what data will be given to AI and how data will be used and how data will be utilized. So should we advocate for state control, or we should just uh, like this is going? Is this right to nationalize the virtual space?
Well, that would be, just before anyone adds, that would be, I mean, so there's a discussion which happened in America, I'll tell you this. So before Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, there was a policy discussion, although in the Republican Party space. But who cares about Democrats and Republicans, not getting into politics? But it was an interesting policy point. So a podcaster asked this point that under the Communications Act, and Malak knows this, under the Communications Act of the US government, Section 230, which is basically the whole battle between Senate Republicans and Democrats happening right now. So the problem is, the question was that, like Twitter, Facebook, and all these platforms, these are kind of like public square, right? Like a place of horizontal value where all of us come together. Now, while we might have some subscription like LinkedIn Premium or Twitter X Premium, whatever, we are in still a horizontal plane. So it is a good question if it could be nationalized or not. But then the funny part is that instead of nationalizing, governments always go for PPP, which Dr. Chhavi knows, like which we was what we call as public-private partnership. Like for example, during COVID,
Right.
government obviously partnered with YouTube, the health ministry. Okay, uh, when elections happen, the Election Commission of India partners with YouTube, X,
Right.
and all these platforms, right? So instead of national, because governments around the world are worried. It's not just Western governments or us. Even Singapore is worried. It's just that they can't control everything in the big tech, and the big tech is also a very nasty thing altogether. Nothing against any MNC. It's just like they are what they are, and uh, that reminds me of a case that a social media company in Karnataka High Court said that Anshul will laugh for sure. So Anshul, what happened was Twitter Communications India's head filed an affidavit.
Yeah.
The man said Twitter Communications India is not a part of Twitter Incorporated before Elon's takeover. It's a part of Twitter Asia Pacific, Singapore. What does it mean? It's weird. Like, and partially it was forgery, but I don't know what happened. Maybe the statement was taken back. It was reported in the media. That is not a lie. It's true. But
it sounds like a technical objection you would take for the heck of it.
Yeah. So the court actually was outraged when the government told that, what is this guy saying? So it's actually a funny thing, but yeah. Malak, Anshul, please add, or initially on what others. I mean, if I keep adding, I'll keep adding for the whole night, so I'll not. But so I think Prabhat, you may repeat your point for Anshul's convenience and for Malak's convenience. But yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about nationalization of the virtual space. So should the government own the virtual space in spite of private MNCs or private giants? So I was thinking about this because this is a jurisprudential question, and
I am principally also against it, and practically also, I don't think that's possible. I mean, they've tried taking away a lot of things from democratized hands, but I haven't seen one single example of where they have been able to successfully do it.
Right. Malak, what do you think? And yeah, Dr. Chhavi, please feel free to add later as well. But yeah, Malak.
Nothing to add over here. I think I agree that there's no nationalization of the virtual space. I mean, there's this entire theory where we see the big tech giants are ruling the world. Actually, there's no point in national because they're obviously lobbying for that to not happen. I guess that is not very practically feasible either. But I think I have a point to make regarding the paper. So I think there's this point where the author says that it takes a lot amount of resources and especially the rare earth materials. So what I was thinking was that should we have an ethical guideline wherein we say that in case of a doomsday event where say yeah uh, we cannot have the resources to for the AI to run for the AI to run. We should be able to substitute to switch back to the original mode that we are having right now. It shouldn't be a no go back event because there are a lot of instances where we see that maybe AI might stop running because of say one of the resources angle, or they might get I don't know if that is technologically feasible, but if they go malicious. So I wanted to hear all of your views about that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that is something that has been a concern. In fact, I think that is one of the reasons that Airbus scandal took place, where that AI program was getting triggered because of a sensor that was on the in front of the plane, and it was changing the way the Airbus was going into a nosedive, and there was no room for manual overdrive of the whole system. And I think we are seeing where Airbus is going. Where sorry, I'm not Airbus. Boeing is going right now.
Going
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Chhavi, feel free to add, please. I guess maybe she's on mute per se.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. I just
Yeah.
realized I was on mute. So
No
I would like to go back to this point of which I was just trying to discuss this, that who will like bell the cat this topic of AI literacy when this is such it is the technology of henceforth 10 years to go by. So like how can people in general of the entire nation like keep beside the ethics portion, but how will people be aware like what is the basic public awareness education about these technologies, how they're working, how are their data being exposed, and how can also these like AI basically help them in like day-to-day life. So this public awareness education, basic education and risks that AI comes up with. So obviously this needs to be discussed and this needs to be taken up.
Yeah, that's a valid point. But yeah, I'll add later. Rest of you, what do you think? Anyone can start.
I think Abhivardhan is holding it all in, and he'll say it
Yes,
all in
because
one.
I want some democracy here. Otherwise, I'll not let it. See, the committee is yours. Have a discussion. If I have to do, I can do those monologues I do live on YouTube. Then I would not have to write. So obviously, I'm holding a bit, but yeah, it's better,
Yeah.
to educate also, because anyone who's gonna be binge watching this on YouTube later, they're also like, okay, Prabhat said nationalization is a concept. Then Malak said, okay, there's an environmental impact. Then Dr. Chhavi said, okay, AI literacy is also an issue. So that way, if anyone thinks about what we are discussing might matters, I think we have succeeded. We have also learned something in the discourse, and yeah, win-win for all. So yeah, that's why I'm,
I definitely see that this is a great opportunity to make money for somebody to educate the already technologically able masses about AI as a tool, and certain use cases, depending upon who we are educating, can definitely be put into the picture. Considering the fact that edtech is one of the most upcoming, although sham industries, but definitely the most upcoming industries. I mean, Duolingo, for that example, I think has been very instrumental in terms of educating people about what AI can do for them with respect to how to learn a new language. Similarly, ChatGPT did it for people who used to write a lot. I think so far as in my circle, it did end up educating us as to how a plastic brain can work, and like in fact it also taught us like why we shouldn't act like a plastic brain and make use of the cells that are there. So
that's
perhaps taking that drive might be a great idea for somebody, for an organization, especially like ISAIL, to go forward. And I, in fact, had a word with Abhivadan about it, I think 2 or 3 months ago, and probably failed to follow it up then.
yeah, that's again in the works. Let's see what happens on that. And I'll definitely update. Something tangible could be coming up. There's also
Yeah.
one update I'd like to give. So we launched some certification standards for training programs and courses,
Oh,
which applies to legal courses only online. But again, nobody would comply with it, but we still launch the standards if somebody wants to in future. So that's definitely it. I have been having discussions. Some industry people also asked me, can some standardization, like ISO does. Dr. Chavi knows about ISO and IEEE. So ISO has all these standards on knowledge management and AI. Can we have something like that in India at a decentralized level? So ISAIL can do that, and as a trust, we can do that. There's no problem. The issue we are actually having is, uh, do people even have the money to uphold the standards? Because
hmm.
all these startups that are coming up, they have this problem, and therefore they're not able to create a compliant ecosystem or a standardized ecosystem. So for every sector is a different challenge. For agriculture, it's unique. For telecom, it's unique. For legal tech, it's a sham. Very few on legal tech is good. The one who we invited were among the few who were very good. That's
Okay.
obviously the. But Dr. Chavi, what do you think?
No, I am sorry, Abhivardhan, you would have to repeat the question. Didn't get the gist of it.
So we were kind of, as we have you in the discussion, we were actually discussing about this problem that, like you said about AI literacy, we were talking about
Yeah.
standardization.
Oh,
So I
right.
was actually, I had said that we actually released some standards for
Hmm.
legal at legal edtech courses, online
Hmm.
courses.
Okay.
Now, I just said that obviously the standards are normal, but nobody would comply with them easily. So even in AI, like there is ISO and IEEE.
Right.
ISO own knowledge management standards on AI. But for a country like us, where starting an AI startup is a very hard job to do with, or even for a research lab, how would it be feasible at a decentralized level to standardize in any sector when it comes to use of AI? It could be for supply management, it could be for anything. So that's why we, wanted to have you in also to add
Yeah,
something. And obviously,
so I feel if we talk about IEEE or ISO kind of standards, they for these standards, which basically give a kind of I would say operational framework. So I am not sure like how this would go about for AI specifically in a country like ours, and how would there be like conformity to these standards. That is the issue what I feel. Even if like these standards are developed and they are operationalized, so the adherence, what I'm not very sure, so I would not have a say, to be honest.
right. No, that's a great insight, by the way, from your end. We appreciate that because that's a genuine concern. Definitely a genuine concern. Uh, uh, Obviously, at an operational level, if a venture is doing something, then of course, certain productized use cases that they have, if that could be standardized at an ethical level, which is like a soft touch approach, not literally saying you have to comply with it, but something like which creates a standard that what this is what it is, and this is industrially understood, because that's how DPIIT works, right?
Right.
So this is something which is again thought out, and it's a hard process, which is exactly why ISAIL exists, which is exactly why we do, because apart from other think tanks that exist, our focus is completely on standardization only. So what we
Right.
say is you invite startups, invite academics, have small discussions, see what the basic concerns are, then churn it out. And I think it would be win-win for all, and we can help you standardize it. And rest is of course up to you, because it is gonna be a wild situation. You're gonna use AI in any sector that you wish to. So yeah.
I think it's a great thing that you're going for standardization, and like ISO, like IEEE, like BIS, and similar standardization. There's always a minimum benchmarking that these standards do. Like you fail to meet, sorry, but you're not certified. And similarly, if we are going for some sort of a certification for an for an AI company, it's probably starting at that point where we are failing a lot of people to give them certification because of them just not being up to the minimum criteria that I think can be set by you or look the society collectively.
Right. That's actually true. Malak, would
Actually,
you like to? No,
yes,
from
actually,
Malak, please. Yeah.
some national universities also started teaching AI classes in their university campus. So I think you are aware of that. So
Yeah, if you could explain again. Yeah.
some national universities NLUs in law, they started teaching AI in their BA, LLB, and LLB classes. So they also sometimes offer uh,
Okay, is it like I'm sorry to interrupt, they are teaching the generative AI tools, or they are teaching like the core AI? But
no, no,
I
no,
want to ask, like, are they teaching the lawyers how to write better or something from that aspect, or they are teaching core AI algorithms?
no, no, they
Yeah,
are
that's
not.
a very good
So
question. Thank
they
you
are
for
not.
asking, ma'am. Please,
They are
please,
not.
please. Sir. I mean,
They
you
are
are
not
not doing
teaching.
it. Okay.
They are not teaching core AI algorithms. They are simply teaching AI is an emerging field. So how the law should respond to that, what law should do
Okay,
in that field.
right.
How because the work of the law is to regulate everything. Law wants to regulate everything. So AI is still unregulated. So that's why they are taking classes.
Interesting. Uh, but yeah, anyways, I think on curriculum, if it's a tricky slope, but it's a simple thing that whatever basic ethical principles that start from the level of data, when they go to algorithmic activities and operations, I think that those stages need to be covered. In fact, in the AI Act.in proposal, which I had drafted, the draft AI Act, I'm not going to brag about it. I'm very humble about it. The draft which I had proposed, the very first proposal which we had in November, we had actually discussed about various levels of AI related legal issues. So like we started from privacy, consent, and those basic data protection issues, right to be forgotten, legitimate use of data, uh, basic consent issues, commonsensical consent management, like the DPDPA says. Then we said, okay, fine, it might go to the level of telecom arbitration or technology arbitration, or maybe commercial mediation. Who knows? Because all of these are consumer law issues to start with, then they go into the level of competition law, which is like market practice issues. But then again, depends, because countries have not been able to do that very swiftly. So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, let others add also. So Malak, I think you have not been adding for some time, but yeah, please.
I've been listening to it. Uh,
Right.
so
Uh,
I mean, if I
please
have
go
to
ahead.
add,
Abhivardhan, I would like to just bring up one more issue from like the issues that are mentioned in the paper. So what I often think about as a major threat for a country like India, with a lot of divided ethnicity, and a lot of, maybe if I could use the word like religion, caste based politics, which happens in a country like India. So I really doubt how AI systems can really consider it all for basically the Indian subcontinent. And am I audible?
Yeah. You're
Right.
audible.
So I often wonder, like, these minute levels of cultural differences, basically, where we have so much of cultural context in a country like India. So leave apart the issue of AI bias. I feel bias is a very specific term for a country like ours. There are people who need representation, and obviously they deserve representation. There are diverse communities, and there's a lot of diverse cultural perspective. So I often feel for like such a country with such diverse cultural ideologies, how efficient can these systems be? I really, for example, I was once looking at this Bhashini app. If you might be aware, is one of the initiatives by, if I'm not wrong, by Mighty. So it covers like Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. So it covers most of the Indian languages, if I'm not wrong, like the spoken languages of India. So
Yes.
might be that there is something which is still left, which is not covered in the app. So I only wonder that this kind of a theme would obviously be a major issue for our country. More ideas from the other members, please.
Yeah, the floor is open. Anyone can start. Anshul, what do you think about it?
I'm unfortunately not having much of an opinion. Still, I think I'm gonna wrap my head around that. Probably gonna let somebody else take it.
Okay. Um, Prabhat, Malak, what do you think?
I think that the India has a great amount of diversity. So right now it is not visual for AI to understand the cultural diversity of India. So maybe in the future, AI we can rely on the AI that on the information given by the AI. But right now, I will not rely on the information given by the AI on any cultural issue, ethnic issue, or any tribal issue or anything.
Okay. Malak, what do you think? Although I will add later, but what do you think?
I actually wanted someone to sum up the concern. Actually, I did not get a lot of concern basically. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Chhavi, would you like to?
Yeah, so Malak, we are basically talking about that India is a country with a lot of diverse culture, practices, religions, and other things which I would not like to specifically talk about. But we are basically discussing that how would AI systems in a country like ours ensure that everybody's right are covered and there is no bias at like such minute levels, because when we say that AI systems are biased, so it's only as large as maybe like the two known genders, maybe, or maybe like the very known categories in various aspects. So for such like specific cultures and other things and practices, that is what we are talking about. So maybe if this doesn't like, I feel that this is not a very suitable topic to be talking about, so I would just like to move on with what the paper basically points out, and which I really like appreciate what the author has really pointed out, that AI ethics are largely basically perceived extraneous to the technical concerns, which I was also earlier saying, that there are people who talk about AI technicalities, the AI developers, algorithm makers, and there are people who talk about AI laws, or how is AI a danger to the society. So obviously this is AI ethics is not seen as a part of AI learning in general, if it can be said that way. So AI is seen as a subject for the technical experts, and it is seen as a topic of concern for maybe the other people working in the society. So this is what the author has pointed out in one sentence, that AI ethics are perceived extraneous to the technical concerns, which lead to a lack of accountability among developers who just prioritize economic incentives over any kind of ethical principles. So this is what precisely like sums up what bothers the society largely, that there needs to be hence all these organizations, as we might be aware of, like Microsoft, Google, and all the major lead tech developer organizations, they have responsible AI or trustworthy AI or some kind of research wing in their, every organization has these kind of principles or maybe research happening actively in these areas.
Yeah, so I think that's the point. Yeah. So if you wish to add something, feel free to. But yeah.
So, Abhivardhan, if it makes sense, can I just like conclude what the paper says, and then we can just wrap up whatever anybody wants to speak. So, this was one of the points that the conclusion of the paper talks about, and no, obviously there are efforts in such areas like accountability, administration. We see all around there is so much of talk around responsible AI, trustworthy AI. So the author basically points out that AI ethics need to transition from rule-based approach to a situation-sensitive approach. And this situation-sensitive approach should emphasize virtues, knowledge, and freedom. And also this kind of a shift, it requires a focus on technical aspects of AI along with a engagement of all the social and like personality related dimensions of AI. And also AI ethics should basically bridge the gap between the values and the technical implementations. That is how I like conclude what the author has discussed. So yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that I think you led the discussion very well this time, and I think this is a good format. Taking up any sections of the paper and trying to relate it with something which is happening right now. If we discuss it that way, I think this format is good.
Right.
So we are happy that our format succeeded and you led it very well. So hats off. If it were a physical discussion, we would have done some clapping. Yeah, we are applauding you for
Nice.
that. So yeah, yeah, that's great. So I think it's been a good discussion. I'll end the recording quickly. This will be posted on YouTube later. That will be done and links will be shared. I hope this discussion would be helpful to anyone. And once we end, I'll just take a few minutes for feedback purposes. So just stay with us so that we can take this in a good way.
Eagerly waiting for it.
Yeah.